they are caring more about punching holes in the darkness than they are them. My life is His. I have committed my life to Him to use me any way He pleases in order to make His name great. That's suffering for Jesus. And He's saying that is what is the norm in this kingdom of what is it that makes you cry or happy or sad or miserable? What is it that every single one of these men were discouraged in their life, but they did something that I want. Okay, good morning. We are back here for part 2 of our special event with Jennifer Rothschild. We are so excited. Make sure you go back and see session 1. She shares her story with us then. First, if you are joining us for the first time and you'd like to know more about our ministry, you can go online to womensbiblestudy.com. And there you can hear everything you want to know, see everything you want to know about us, and you could watch past lessons, get handouts, and see all of our guest speakers that we've had before. So today we are very, very happy to have Jennifer. I didn't tell you before that she actually is a singer and an author. Of course, we know that. And you play the piano still?
Yes.
Yeah, so good thing
play
you.
At it.
Yeah, like that's awesome. So anyway, she's all talented. So had we had a piano, we would actually have her play and sing, but that just, we don't have one here, so that just didn't work. So I'm like, you're just going to have to come and just talk. So anyway, super happy to have you. We're doing our question and answer. We have lots of questions from the audience. And so first, I want to ask you a couple questions, because I always say this, I get to ask my questions first, which is kind of super awesome. So you have a new book out called
Yes.
Invisible. So tell everybody what that's about.
Okay, Invisible is, the subtitle is, How You Feel Is Not Who You Are. Can I get a witness? Okay, so the point is, women, whether you are a stay-at-home mom, whether you're a career woman, whether you're an older lady, you all have these moments where you feel invisible, right? Like you're insecure, you're feeling insignificant, overlooked. And so what I do is I actually found myself feeling that way. Partly because of blindness, partly because of aging, partly just because of getting a little too involved in social media and feeling constantly like I'm not smart enough, good enough, thin enough, whatever enough. And I finally, I delved into the story of Gomer. Y'all know who Gomer is? Hosea and Gomer. She was this woman who Hosea chose to marry, and she was promiscuous. She ended up breaking his heart. She was prone to wander. The point is, when she left her identity as a beloved wife is when she felt invisible. And she tried to find herself in all the wrong places. When we leave our identity as a loved and beloved daughter of God, we go to all the wrong places to find ourselves, and we lose what is actually right about us. So that's what I do in Invisible, is I help a woman understand that there's a me in Gomer, that we are loved, accepted, chosen, complete, and yes, prone to wander. So that's what Invisible is.
Okay, good. So she's got that over here. So, and for those of you watching us online, you can order that from your website?
Yeah.
Jennifer Rothschild?
Actually, go to theinvisiblebook.org, because you can get free stuff, like a free audiobook, if you buy the book there.
Perfect. That's awesome. Okay, let's talk about depression, because you went through a time of depression, and I love what she said. She said she was the person that touted, "It is well with my soul," and then she had to go to the doctor and get Wellbutrin, and so she says, "It is Wellbutrin with my soul." So tell us how that all happened, because I think a lot of people suffer from those days.
Well, sure, a lot of women, I think, struggle with depression, and then a lot of women just struggle with life not working out well and call it depression. So I think a woman who is seeking the Lord needs to always be wise and not self-diagnose, but immediately go to the Lord. Okay, so my journey with depression, I was becoming more forgetful. I'm a genuinely happy person for the most part, and I just had trouble finding my happy, and everything seemed hard. Now, blindness things are more difficult, but I mean, just to walk to the mailbox felt like Mount Everest. Getting out of bed was difficult. Focusing was difficult. So, of course, I tried resting more and journaling and reducing my caffeine and getting more exercise and talking to my friends and being honest, which are all smart things to do. If you're struggling with the blues, connect yourself to another person. Make sure physically you've got everything going for you, right? But after almost a year, nothing got better. It kept getting worse, and that's when I went to the doctor. which was a wise decision. And she, doing blood work, said, Jennifer, you got no dopamine. Okay, so what that means for all of us who are not doctors is, our brain is an organ. Our brain is an organ, just like our liver is an organ. And my brain chemistry was all messed up. And so I needed to have medication to fix that. And I remember feeling super guilty because I was like, oh, but I'm a Christian. I shouldn't be depressed. And she said, well, your brain is an organ. And Christians get hepatitis, right? Because your liver is an organ. And when she helped me understand it that way, for me, it was a misunderstanding. And I think in our Christian community, sometimes we misunderstand depression. And we think it's a set of circumstances and our reaction to those circumstances, when often there is a genuine chemical depression that comes from our organ of our brain, and especially for women. Can we be honest? Menopause can totally mess up your brain. And it's because as those female hormones change, it messes with your brain chemistry. So we need to give ourselves grace and treat our bodies well. And if that means we swallow a pill and say, it is Wellbutrin with my soul, then so be it. Hallelujah.
Oh, that's good. Last week I actually, in the middle of teaching, totally went blank. Oh. I couldn't even remember what I was talking about.
Yeah.
It was like one of those nightmarish moments, but so maybe I need to go to the doctor.
I call that mental pause. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mental pause is a symptom of menopause.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe I should go to the doctor. That might be a good idea. Okay, so here is a couple questions. A lot of people want to know how you met your husband.
My husband and Phil and I met when he was a sophomore and I was a freshman in college. I was dating his roommate. And Tony, his roommate, made the mistake one day of introducing me to Phil. And as soon as I met Phil, it was like, Tony who? Aww. And so, but Tony was the best man in our wedding. And Phil, if he were here, he would tell you this. He would say, when he met me, he liked me, he thought I was cute, he knew I couldn't see, so that meant he had a chance. Which is silly, because he's a very handsome man and brilliant and lovely, and I'm very blessed.
Now, this is just a random question, can you touch people's faces and see what they look like?
No.
No.
I mean, I can, but I don't. Because
it would be kind of creepy,
well, faces don't feel that pretty. I mean, people romanticize that's like really cool, but they don't feel that pretty.
Okay.
I actually like to discern personalities more than I do try to figure out their physical appearance.
Okay.
A person's physical appearance. Because that's more who they are anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah.
Okay, we talk a lot in class about the importance of knowing the Bible. And you talked a little bit about your whole, how the importance of, you couldn't do this without God.
Yeah.
So tell me about, because we're constantly saying, be in the Word,
Yeah.
so, so you're prepared for whatever. So how do you, one of the questions, how do you memorize? How do you, how important is the Word in your life?
Oh my goodness. I think there's a scripture, it's in Psalm 119, maybe verse 79, 76, somewhere around there. Read the whole chapter, you'll find it. But it says something like, if it were not for your word, Lord, I would have perished in my affliction. And I know that is true for me because the word stabilizes me. It is the voice of truth when the voice of our feelings is so strong. And so for me, without being able to read it physically, that is a loss. In fact, that was one of my greatest losses early on when I lost my sight at 15, because I literally used to read the Bible every night, my little red leather Bible. And when I could no longer see those letters, there was kind of a loss of intimacy. Right. And so I would encourage you, if you can see it, look at it. You don't realize what an intimate experience that is for you to have with the Lord. But thankfully, because of technology, I can listen to the Word. Okay. And sometimes I listen to it read through my talking computer, which talks like this, and it is very unattractive. And sometimes it's an actor or a professional reader reading it, and that's all wonderful. And so I listen to the Word a lot, and I do memorize. It's the only way I have it with me. And so memorizing is just something that is a discipline, and it gets harder as we age. But don't let anyone tell you that you don't have a good memory or you can't memorize. You just don't know how to memorize, and you are calling it a bad memory because you haven't learned how to make it a good memory. We all have the capacity to remember truth. God made us that way. And so faith comes by hearing, hearing the word of God. Listen to it over and over and over. And you may not think you've memorized it, and eventually one moment you'll go, I know that verse.
Yeah. That's awesome. Braille, a lot of questions on, do you read Braille?
Nah, I'm a very inept blind person. I have a Braille watch that I don't know if y'all in the audience can see it or on the camera, but I lift the face, and so I can read the Braille watch to feel where I am, time-wise. But other than that, I label things, but as far as reading, I can't read Braille. I began to learn when I was a senior in high school, and my instructor advised that I wait until I became less of a visual thinker. And I really didn't want to slow down my life. I went through college by having people read to me, and now technology is such that anything I need I can usually find through audio. My computer, my phone, everything talks.
Okay. Yeah, well, thank the Lord for that.
Yeah.
Okay, what happened after you didn't stand up on that speaking engagement? I thought that was a great question.
That is a great question. So that question for that I remained seated with my friend Karen while everyone else was standing because we could not stand given the nature of that plea. You deserve to be healed. Karen and I, there was such an emotional swell in that room, and I'm sure spiritually too. Women were really having beautiful spiritual experiences. It became easy for us just to kind of slip out, and literally we kind of slipped out. And I know it's a surprise, but the lady in charge was not taking us to the airport. Someone else was, and we found her in the back and left for the airport. That was it, literally. That's a very anticlimactic end of that story.
That's so sad.
But we'll be in heaven someday, and it'll all be okay. It's no big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we talked about, so in this room, I was thinking that there's lots of women that have sickness, that have, cancer, their husbands or whatever, and they prayed and prayed for years and years to no avail. And so you talked a lot about this joy, but make that work for us. Explain, so somebody just comes to you and says, hi, you've just been diagnosed with cancer. Okay, how do you become joyful? What are the steps to take? Okay, God, I'm trying to be joyful. You're trying to conjure it up. What does that even look like?
Well, one of the things that I guess I would say is that you remove expectations. The Lord saved us by grace, and the Lord sustains us by grace. And the fruits of the Spirit are that which blossom from our yielded life. We don't try to conjure these things. If I got a phone call, I had a breast cancer scare 2 years ago, and thankfully it was removed with a lumpectomy, but I know that feeling. My first response wasn't joy. My first response was fear, and that's okay. It's okay to process emotionally these difficult things that are hard and take us off guard. But at some point, we can't live in the fear, and we can't live in the anger, and we can't live in the disappointment, because those things kill us. So in a very practical way, I think, first of all, in order for it to be healed, you got to feel it. Feel it so that the Lord can heal it. Acknowledge it. I give 3 things in the book, God is Just Not Fair. I say, cry when you hurt. If it hurts, cry. Deal with it. Don't just pretend it doesn't. And then, of course, because of menopause, I can't remember the other 2.
But they were really good.
But they were so good.
Were super. Buy the book, and then they can find it out themselves.
I know one of them. It was to choose loyalty over logic. I think sometimes we hang on with the Lord until He dissatisfies us. Okay, Lord, yes, you're the God who heals me. You have sent forth your word to heal my disease, and I proclaim healing. And by the way, I do that. Yeah. I do that because I trust His sovereignty and I trust His love. And so when the Lord sends forth His word to heal my disease, His healing may look different than mine. And so I don't want to decide after 6 months or 6 years, okay, well, never mind. That didn't fit my logic, so I'm no longer loyal. No. You just hang in there with the Lord. And I did not give a very clear answer. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, I don't think we do anything as much as we be someone. Right. We be the child that says, I'm hurting and I'm afraid. and Lord, carry me. And I'm not going to jump out of your arms, and I know you're not going to drop me.
The funniest part of what you just said is that I don't even remember the question.
Me neither.
When you said that, I was like, I don't even remember what I asked her.
Well, I think there were about 3 questions in one.
There probably was. So
Yeah.
it's a joy. That's what we were talking
Joy,
about. Okay,
right.
good. Oh, we make a good team.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I know. And I asked this to you last night. Was my first question that I wanted to know with you was, have you resigned yourself to being blind? Like, is it one of those things like, you know, because I know there's probably a lot of people that want to come up to you and say, let me pray, I have the gift of healing, and they might, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And I mean, do you respond like, please pray for me, I really want to be healed, or are you just completely content now?
Okay. One time, Johnny Erickson Tata, who has been in a wheelchair since she was 17, quadriplegic, she has had many people ask her if they can pray for her for healing. And I learned so much from her. Her response was, yes, please pray for my physical healing. But more than that, I need you to pray for my contentment. And so I don't judge the person who wants to pray for me, but I will say there are sometimes someone wants to pray for me, and it's out of their own sense of pride. Right. And I don't like that. And the strong woman in me wants to say, you don't act like that. I'm not going to be, you can't use me to make yourself feel better about your spiritual inflation. Okay. But the Lord showed me that was just as prideful. So now I have asked the Lord to help me be humble and receive. I don't know if he wants to heal me. I really don't. And I don't want to be in the way of it if he does. Because whatever brings him glory, the goal is not our healing. The goal is his glory. The goal is not even our happiness. The goal is what is his will. The goal is our obedience. So, of course, I forgot your question again. But I will say this. I don't resign myself to anything.
Okay.
Because that sounds like defeat.
Right.
Have I reconciled myself to where I am in life right now? Absolutely, because I believe as for God, his ways are perfect. Right. But if the Lord chooses to heal me before I go to heaven, do you not think you will be hearing me screaming all the way from Springfield, Missouri? I will be standing up on my chair yelling and screaming because, wow, I'm not going to miss blindness if he chooses to remove it at all.
Right.
Though it would have been nice if it happened before a few of these wrinkles showed up.
You don't have one single wrinkle. Oh, that was one of the questions. Like, how do you put your makeup on? That's what like, I asked and she didn't answer, and so now someone else answers, so now I'm going to get the answer.
Okay. So my mom taught me how to put on my makeup when I was a teenager. When I was 15, actually, she had promised me she was going to let me wear makeup, but then, of course, y'all who have heard my story know that when I became 15, I became legally blind, and I couldn't see my face. So she came up with this system by which I apply my cosmetics, and it all involves counting. So I know, for example, how many times to blush the blush on the blush palette, and then wear on my cheekbone. Same works for mascara. And, daytime count for you glamour girls is lower than my evening count. But here's the thing. It works perfectly unless I get sidetracked. And so a few years ago, I was not paying really good attention. I had just gotten my hair cut to shorter, and it was not working well. I could not make my hair work. And so I knew it didn't look good. And people have said, well, how would you know that? Because you couldn't see it. Well, ugly has a texture. So a friend of mine was selling free cosmetics. She'd given me free samples of her cosmetics, eyeliners and lip liners. She had separated them for me, of course. And so I thought, I'm going to put on that lip liner. I don't usually wear it, but it can't be that hard, right? So I put on the new lip liner, I put on the new eyeliner, and I'm suddenly feeling okay about myself again. And I leave my bathroom because I'm going to the kitchen garage door where my husband is going to pick me up because I'm about to go speak somewhere. That meant I had to go through the living room, and our oldest son, Clayton, is playing a game on TV. So I say something to him. He evidently takes his eyes off the TV screen and puts them on his mother, and he goes, Mom, your lips are black. Oh, no! All right, so I said to him, now, son, they're not black. This is just a little more dramatic than you're used to. And he goes right back to Mario. So the garage door opens, and it's Phil, my husband, coming in. So I open the door just in time. We meet face to face right there in the threshold. He says, Jennifer Rothschild, your eyes are flaming red. Yeah, so I mixed up the two. But here's the thing, Lisa. I will tell this for all these ladies here. If you're ever having a bad hair day and you cannot get your hair to work, the solution really is if you will put some eyeliner on your lips and some lip liner on your eyes, no one notices your hair. Ever. It's a guarantee.
That's perfect. I love that. Oh my gosh. Okay, transplant. Was a transplant ever an option?
No, for my eye disease, a transplant is not an option. Yet. Technology is moving very swiftly,
really
and
is.
I'm trying to keep up with it.
So do you keep up with it? Like, do you know, someone
A little bit. I'm not obsessed, but I have a Google alert, so I know what's...
So if
I'm
something
sorry.
does
Who needs a brain if you have Google, right?
Exactly. That's what
Thank
I
you,
say.
Lord. Uh-huh.
Are your children's eyes okay? Was this a hereditary thing?
The purest form of retinitis pigmentosa is hereditary.
Okay.
I have actually a very strange mutation of the disease that is not technically called retinitis pigmentosa, so my children are safe. But I don't use the real name of the disease because it is way too confusing.
Okay.
And I can't even speak English, much less some Latin phrase.
Okay. During your struggle, this was a new question that we didn't even talk about.
Mm-hmm.
How does someone close to you encourage you? Like, how do they say the right words? Like, you know, like I'll pray for you, or what do they do?
Well, your presence is always more powerful than your words. Always. And when someone is struggling, I can tell you a few things that are not as helpful, even though your heart is pure. Call me if you ever need anything. The person who's really struggling, they don't want to be a burden. They don't want to call you when they need something. They need you desperately, but they feel guilty or like they're imposing or they don't have the courage yet. You call them. If someone is struggling, you know, you don't say, let me know if you need anything, I'll go to the grocery store. No, you call them and say, I'm going to the grocery store, what would you need? Or I have free time today. Can I come over at 3 or at 5 or at 7? It is a blessing to the person who's struggling to make it easy for them to need you because they feel guilty for needing you. They don't need to. None of us need to because we all need each other. But that is a way you can be a practical encouragement to someone.
Okay, that's awesome. It's hard, though, being a mom, though, isn't it? Because you want to fix everything.
Oh,
'Cause
yeah.
I think, like, Cheyenne will call and she'll be crying about something, and I want to fix it. But I think she just wants to cry, and she wants to just be sad. And it's hard to not, like, you know, let them do that. 'Cause
Yes.
we just kind of feel like we have to.
Yeah, just
to
let
fix
them
it all.
process. Just
Yeah.
be the ears. Yeah.
Let's see, you're a C.S. Lewis fan.
Oh, yeah.
Why?
Because I have a terrible crush on my dead author, C.S. Lewis. But my husband is really okay with it.
that's
as long
good.
as he's dead. So when I was in my thickest part of depression, everything within me was becoming dismantled. So my faith was part of that dismantling. And I really had trouble with even dealing with the deity of Christ, the existence of God, much less reconciling all the mysteries of our faith. And I got to such a difficult place, and I did all the reading I could do, and I did all the praying, and of course I felt guilty for doubting, and I was just one menopausal mess. But the Lord brought to me C.S. Lewis, and I began to read some of his things, and it wasn't his writing and his arguments that brought me back to a place of faith. It was the fact that I realized this guy is light years smarter than me. This guy was an atheist. This guy went from atheism to deism and then came to Christ. And not only, it was this combination of logic and wonder that brought him to salvation. And I thought, Lord, I do know that you're real, even though I can't figure it out. And I do trust you, but I trust at this very moment while I'm in my darkness, I can trust C.S. Lewis because he wore skin like I have skin. Mm-hmm. And so he became what I call my authoritative guide. And I thought, if he can believe, I can believe. And so he put me back on that path of belief as I followed him. And then, of course, it didn't take very long for me to own it again. And my faith now is stronger and sweeter. And I don't have more answers, but I have far more satisfaction.
See that, but I think people need to really understand that, because I think so often in this whole Christian community, we feel like we have to be perfect and we can't doubt, and if we do, God hates us, and it's like that's just so not true.
No.
I think it's something that we need to embrace, but not walk away. And I'm proud of you that you didn't ever walk away.
Well, I think sometimes our faith can have a giant letter I in the middle of it.
Yeah.
It's about me, what I can figure out, what I can reason, and faith really shouldn't have an I in it.
Yeah.
It wouldn't, it just shouldn't have an I in it. It should be God-centered.
Faith, F-A-I, it would be faith.
It would be faith. It would be not a very pretty word. No.
Yeah, it's not quite as flowy.
No,
is
it's
it?
not. Yeah.
You say something really awesome in your book. C.S. Lewis says this: "Courage, child." This is in one of the Narnias?
Yeah, one of the Narnias.
We are all between the paws of the true Aslan. But you changed that to not like pause, P-A-W-S, but P-A-U-S-E. We are all in the pause.
Yeah.
Explain that, because that was really good.
Well, when I especially was going through depression and just times of struggle, to me it felt like a pause, a P-A-U-S-E, like I was pulled out on the sideline, like I wasn't in the game, like I wasn't in the midst of the abundant life. But no, that's part of it, that we're all in the pause. Aslan is this Jesus figure, so the great Aslan or the true Aslan, he's saying, no, have courage. You're not only in the hands of Jesus, but you're in the will of Jesus. Even if it feels like a parenthesis at the moment, it's still right smack dab in the center of his care for you. That's a beautiful thought.
Yeah. It really is. That was one of those big things. Let's see. You said you were reluctant to pray for healing at some point because you wanted to seek God and not healing.
Yeah.
Because you were afraid of being disappointed. And I think there's a lot of people here that are like, I'm afraid to pray for my husband because if he doesn't change, then I'm going to be really disappointed. Like sometimes you just don't want to pray because you're fearful of that disappointment.
Of course, we try to protect ourselves. I think for me it was several layers. One, it was like, well, I don't want to be too public and fervent in my prayers for healing, because what if God doesn't? I don't want him to look bad,
right.
So I want to protect his image like I'm his brand controller. And so I think that was part of my hesitation. Another part was, let's just be gut honest. We don't see people delivered from blindness all the time. And so, I didn't want to pray it and then open my eyes and it'd be dark again. I'd had that happen too many times. So there was a season that I was like, well, that was my motivation for not praying for healing. But the Lord, through his grace, and by the way, those two reasons that I just shared are not valid reasons. Right. They're very erroneous. But the Lord brought me to this place of grace where I began to seek him more than healing. And what he showed me is, I got so much other stuff in my life that if I really seek him and contentment from him, then if he chooses to heal me, that will add to my wholeness. Right. It will not make me whole. Whereas if I don't seek contentment, then if he heals me, I'm still just as broken and I'll just be a grumpy-sided woman, Right. And so I think when we seek the higher gifts, then it gives us a place of wellness. And I'm not also saying that sometimes we don't pray for healing because of self-protection. Absolutely. And I ask the Lord, I always want him to reveal and refine my motives. I'm sure I'm still capable of that, because of course no one wants to be disappointed. But he's kind of transitioned me from that place, thankfully.
Because you talk a lot about contentment. How do you really become content? Like, I'm just content living in this marriage that will never change. I'm just content living with this chronic illness that will never change. Like, how do you get that? You're just in the Word. You just like, how do you get to that place?
That is a very big question for a very. I don't want to minimize the depth of that question by the length of this answer. Okay. I have a friend who is in chronic pain, and the doctors have told her there's nothing that can be done. She will die with this. She cannot sit, and she cannot stand for more than, well, she can't sit at all. She can stand for no more than 5 minutes. She exists on pain medication. And she texted me just 2 days ago and said, I have stopped praying for healing. Now I'm just praying for heaven. And my heart was broken. And in a weird way, there's a contentment. There's some contentment in that.
Right.
How did she get to that point? Was it desperation? And then how do you also know when it's time to stop fighting?
Right.
Okay? And so I think more that's the nature of your question. If you're in a difficult marriage and you are just done, and I mean, I'm grateful for my marriage. We are very human. We are both very human. We're both firstborns. We're always right. Neither of us are ever wrong. And so we've had our moments. We have supported the Christian counseling industry. And there have been times when we've made bad choices, and but at the same time, I'm grateful for my marriage. We have a good marriage. So I guess as I'm saying that to say, sometimes we have to be wise as women to know when the Lord wants to change the situation and when he wants to change us. And you don't find that out if you leave too soon.
Right.
You may never feel content because we think of contentment as this happy, placid, groovy thing. And I believe contentment is more a sense of reconciliation. Paul said, in whatsoever state I am in, whether it is a state of illness, a state of a bad marriage, I will be content. And this is Philippians 4. And then the next verse tells how. Because I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. We cannot be content, I don't believe, without that ending of that verse. I can be content. I'm going to wake up today and he's going to talk ugly to me and I'm going to smile back and I can't. No, you can't. You can't, because you're human and you're tired and you're frail and you're disappointed. But you can do all things through Christ. Christ in you can do that. Now, how that happens in a very practical way is, first you just have to admit your defeat and maybe shift your prayers from the change them, Lord, like Stormy O'Mardian says, to change me, Lord, change me, Lord. And when he changes you, he might change your capacity to handle it. Through changing you, it may do something in your husband's life to change him. There's not an easy answer. And so this kind of answer could simplify the process, and that would do it a disservice. It's hard to live in a war zone. It's hard. But you're not alone. You're not alone in the battle.
All right, 2 more questions, and then we get to go to lunch.
Okay.
Hallelujah. I think I'm hungry. Like most people, like when you have guest speakers, you're supposed to do things for them, like get them water.
I know, she hasn't fed me.
I just walked in there and she's like, could I maybe get some water? And I'm like, that is so sad. And then I'm like, oh. Then she's reaching for her purse. Yeah, and then I realized we had candy out here, so I'm like, oh, would you like some peanut M&Ms? Yeah, we're friends now because she likes peanut
buddies.
M&Ms. Yeah.
I think I love peanut M&Ms. I am not that. Yeah, I'm good. That was awesome.
All right, 2 questions, and then we'll go.
Okay.
How did you learn to function after? Well, I guess this is 3 questions. How did you learn to function after going blind? Is one. But who wrote this? She says she has MS, and her doctor says she's losing her vision. And like, what do I do?
Well, in a very practical way, your state should provide some rehabilitative services. And that would be my first thing I would always say. Find your local lighthouse for the blind or your state rehabilitative services that will help you with occupational therapy and that will help you just learn how to do practical things. Like I walk with a cane. I've learned a little bit of Braille. I know how to write a book on a computer that talks to me. So there are ways. Blindness is not the end. It's just the beginning of a new and creative way to live. And so find practical tools that are provided, because there are plenty. But that is the first thing I would do. Is just decide you're not defeated. You are just on a new mission.
There you go. And which brings us to the last thing. In your book, the very last, one of the last things that you say is you talk about 3 different things when your life pretty much changes. The first one is every struggle is a snapshot.
Yeah.
So give us an...
Sometimes we get discouraged because we look at our life and we think this is it forever. This is all there will ever be, this feeling of defeat, this feeling of sadness, this feeling of whatever it is. It's a snapshot. It's not the whole photo album. It's not the whole camera roll. Just like in an old photo album, you would look at one picture and it represents, boom, an instant in someone's life. You would never define that picture. You would never let that be the definition of someone's whole life, but we tend to do that when things aren't going well. This rotten marriage, this physical diagnosis, it's a snapshot, sisters. It is not the whole movie roll. It is not the whole photo album. So don't let it define you. Let it become something that God uses in your life to refine you and help you to turn the next page.
I like that. The second part to that is every trial can be your teacher.
Yeah. Blindness for me has been a classroom, a hard teacher sometimes. But when we resist the lessons that the Lord is teaching us through suffering, then the suffering is worse. But when your trials become your teacher, then they become part of God's redemptive process in your life, and they make you stronger. So instead of fighting against it as an enemy, ask the Lord to make that trial your teacher, to expose who you are and who God is.
And the third one is every mystery of faith can become a ministry.
We've all got mysteries of faith. Lord, why'd you let my daughter be born with this? Lord, why'd you let my marriage turn out this way? Lord, why this, why that? There's mysteries. Why did you heal her? Why haven't you answered my prayer? Those mysteries of faith that you struggle with, they represent things like diabetes, hard marriage, rejection, insecurity. All of those things can become a ministry. They're not a dead end that disqualifies you. They become what God uses to minister. They become this well in which He fills you up, and then you splash out and you minister and you nurture others. So what might seem like a loss can really be a greater benefit to someone else who really needs what only you have to give.
Our kids, a lot of our kids struggle with OCD, and it's very frustrating because I know God can take it away from them in a heartbeat. And Shine was struggling with it one day, and I prayed that night. I just said, God, I know you can take this from her. Please, I beg you, beg you, beg you, take it. And the next morning I woke up and I pulled out all of these books from all the people that we've had in, different speakers, and I laid them on the bed, and she came out, and I said, you know what, Shine, here's what I think is going on. I said, I don't really know that God's going to heal you from this, but I do know that you know what it's like to have OCD. And I really believe that God can use this so that you can help other people out there. Amen. Don't let it affect you to where it just ruins your life, but let's take it and embrace it. And I think if we can embrace the bad marriage or embrace the sickness or I think it just changes the way we focus, the view of life.
It makes us not the victim of it, but instead we are the victor over the circumstances, and we're walking mighty with the Lord and seeing what He's going to do and how He's going to use it and us.
Amen. Jennifer, thank you so much. And we're just so happy that you came.
Me too. Me too. Thank you.
And also, just if anyone is here and they really don't know Jesus, maybe somebody brought you or maybe you're listening online, and it's real simple. We always say this: Jesus, come in my life. Pick up a Bible, get into church, read. It's pretty simple, and it's a joyful life.
Makes all the difference in the world.
Would you like to pray?
Sure. And Lord, thank you for all these sweet people, and I pray that your blessings would be upon them. I pray where they're empty, that you would fill them. I pray that where they are broken, you would heal them. I pray that what you long to do in their lives, that they would be open to that being done. Thank you, Jesus, that we can trust you with every question and with every answer. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Thank you, girls. We'll see you next week.
Maybe you're going to struggle every single day of your life with the situation that you have. Maybe you wouldn't yell at your kids, but do you gossip at all the girls? Okay, maybe you wouldn't wear those things. But it's so true. It's like, what do people say about Christians? You're so judgmental. As we progress in our relationship with Christ, our lives will change. And now, instead of judging, when you believe the Bible and the Bible alone, I said, that's what we live for, is just this one